Thank you. Just want to make sure I'm audible. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to just quickly check the refresh rate so I don't go and start talking before the slide shows up. So before I start, just a quick overview. Akshay Deshpande. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Quinnox. We are a 20-plus years organization, bit of bimodal. We do system integration as well as for the last 5 years, we are building SaaS platforms. We are headquartered out of Chicago, and for the next 20 odd minutes, I'm going to talk to you about how we've leveraged our extensive experience in API development, build tools, accelerators to really help deliver your APIs faster without causing security challenges, as well as helping in terms of governance. So if you look at it, these are, at least from our perspective, 5 key objectives why organizations really look for API development. A lot, especially with the pandemic, there's a big shift towards reaching directly to your customer. Customer experience is one of the key things where you want to reach out to your customer, build mobile applications, ensure that you have constant engagement. Otherwise, you're going to be obsolete with someone else trying to really disrupt you. If you look at it, traditionally, all the organizations used to rely on B2B transactions. You had EDI, RosettaNet, and a whole bunch of other protocols which were used. A lot of these are asynchronous, and it relies on your partner to be onboarded and to at least be adherent to these standards. Our experience tells us that any partner onboarding takes a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks. Then comes the whole aspect of data-driven business management. There's a lot of DaaS companies. There's a lot of data which is there. You keep hearing this buzzword, data is the new oil. And you're trying to build your entire business model based upon data and business processes which you're offering. If you see between the last few years and some of the predictions from analysts, mergers and acquisitions is on the top. You're looking at organizations trying to pivot towards new business models through these acquisitions. And the last piece is growth, newer product and other perspectives. Now, why are organizations doing this? The outcome for this is you're looking at increasing your revenue. You're trying to come up with operational efficiencies to really impact your bottom line. The biggest thing is the time to market. Traditional development timelines were taking too long, and you're looking at newer digital technologies trying to be delivered in 2-week, 4-week cycles, which puts a big pressure on the organizations for building APIs. And not to mention the compliance aspect. You're trying to address aspects of compliance where you're either sending in the information to some of the regulatory authorities, and you want to make sure that you are providing consistent information to be compliant. Now, with all of these things, what we have seen is implemented well, APIs can help you deliver your product faster by at least 40%. But our experience as a practitioner, I've been doing this from SOA days, 20 plus years, there's a lot of challenges and pitfalls. The biggest concerns which we see is around scalability and business downtime. So pretty much most of you in the room will relate to the aspect. As much as you're building your capabilities, there's a lot of legacy systems in the organizations. You have mainframe, you have iSeries, and when you expose these capabilities using APIs, which were never designed for the API transactions, you're going to start impacting the downtime. And having the right controls is one of the key aspects, otherwise you see challenges. The next aspect which comes is inconsistent documentation and low developer experience. You must have heard a lot of speakers, I think Kevin before me was talking about the API developer experience and other side of things. Our experience, or at least my experience as a practitioner, tells me that most of the time, the documentation is very static. You develop an API, the documentation is created, but by the time the API goes live, the documentation becomes obsolete. Your governance becomes big challenge because you now have three different, at least, types of developers in API. You have the traditional ones who use some sort of middleware platform or ESB to build APIs. You have the new low-code, no-code guys or the citizen integrators who are coming in. And then you are looking at the people who use code or programming languages to build these APIs. That becomes a big challenge to ensure consistencies across these three ways, enforce the governance, and if you have too much of a governance, you always have ways in which people try to slip out of it, causing challenges. The next piece is on the agility and adaptability. I was at a luncheon right now, and we were talking about the challenges of shadow APIs. I mean, one of the things which we have seen very common is specifically in digital marketing. You have Salesforce talking to Marketo. The marketing guy basically gets someone, builds the connection, and you have information which is basically plugged up. Yes, it gets done in a couple of days, but no one is aware of this API. There's changes which get done to the platform, new patches get updated, and your information is no longer processing, but your entire engine is built on top of it. So the ability to change is no longer there because some of these things are not there. Now, in addition to this, you have traditional governance mechanisms which come into play, which cause challenges in terms of the life cycle or the time taken for approval and making sure that they get deployed. Then comes the aspect of security, vulnerability, data breaches. I think you spoke about shield right. From our perspective, security is something which needs to be addressed pretty much from the design side of things. If you do not address security from the design aspects, by the time it's deployed, the security challenges grow exponentially. Identifying the right stack. If you're using open source solutions, are your components having problems with the open source? Because there's a lot of vulnerabilities which get exposed across the open source libraries. Are you following the OWASP standards? And are you testing it before it gets deployed? Are you using the right policies? Working across, I would say, 10 plus Fortune 500 customers, my experience is most organizations use API management, API gateways, and they use pretty much out-of-box policies. They are never tweaked, they are never adjusted to your organization, which causes challenges in security and data breaches. And the last piece is legacy, SOA, and other capabilities. Development lifecycle is stretched. How do you ensure this is taken care of? Now, most of you would have seen this. This is just a representation of different stages in your life cycle. Discovery, design, develop, test, and go live support. I spoke to you about the changing API developer ecosystem. It's not just developers, there is low code, no code, and there's different ways in which APIs are built. The knowledge of existing systems is a key to this. How do you have a mechanism to discover existing components so that they can help deliver these capabilities? The aspect of security challenges, I mean, people predominantly use firewall. They will use IP filtering. They will use some aspect of this. Is that all going to be sufficient with the APIs, or does this have to have some aspect of or knowledge of the contract of the API to ensure you don't have a leaky abstraction? And the last piece is the growing channels of interaction. It's no longer SOAP and REST. You're talking about additional ways in which people are trying to expose APIs. You're looking at gRPC, you're looking at GraphQL, there's streaming APIs, and all of this puts a different challenges in this. Now, our experience in this, 3 pitfalls to really avoid and deliver value through the APIs. From our perspective, the biggest pitfalls is lack of proper documentation and governance, inadequate testing, and insufficient monitoring. Now, through these stages, I've highlighted some of the aspects which are very important. At least from our perspective, a digital reference architecture. How do you leverage this? Now, our perspective on the architecture is it's not a static document. It has to be something which you engage and you leverage in a way which people will keep leveraging it and does not become some sort of an artifact which sits in your content management portal. The product decision tree, you have the ability to build APIs in different ways. how do you actually pick up the right product for your solution? So we believe in creating an interactive decision tree. You key in source target details, you key in the business logic, you key in what you need. It tells you the kind of patterns as well as the product you would want to use to make it effective. The other aspect I spoke about was a discovery engine. The ability to go and investigate what exists at the network layer, at the hardware layer, and identify legacy components and APIs or services which exist in your ecosystem, which will help deliver these capabilities. The design side of things. Now, I'm talking about an API developer portal. That's one of the key things. So our experience is most of the solutions provide either pieces of this capability where they will give you a developer experience, but will not have a collaboration workflow. We are looking at a scenario where this is interactive. So we built, I would say, plugins on top of standard API developer portals where your collaboration is all within the platform. You enforce governance on design patterns. So there's a standard reference kit of design patterns which are all built as part of the platform. When someone goes and tries to create an API request, it will try and identify details and say, this is the pattern. It will give you a reference implementation. So the only thing which you need to do is implement the business logic associated with it. My experience is this reduces your entire development time by a minimum of 30%, plus it ensures you do not have additional challenges as a result of security or other breaches, which will happen because of improper design. And then comes the decision tree and the environment sizing tool. It will help you recommend based upon your payload size, your transaction volume, and your environment, whether you're building on a specific ESB stack, whether you're building this on top of containers, or you're using serverless functions. What kind of compute would you need to deliver this kind of a throughput? That's the aspect which all go in the single API developer portal to at least make sure that it is consistent. Then comes the aspect of development side of things. Automated migration tool. Now, you'll see a lot of solutions which will help take you from a SOAP WSDL-based service to a REST API. What we really look at is taking this to the next notch, where we would look at converting and generating a scaffolding for a target platform of your choice. And this is, again, a platform-agnostic approach. You can take an existing solution and deploy this on top of any new platform. And the most important aspect is the whole aspect of error handling. One of the common things is any business process implemented in an API is an orchestration of multiple APIs. How do you really handle these errors? APIs are fire and forget. How do you have a compensation block associated with it? How do you ensure that this is done in a codeless way where you don't have to write it every time? And that's the aspect of the error handling frameworks, which will then also help in consistent tracing and monitoring side of things. And the last piece is the framework, how this gets deployed. That brings me to the next part, which is very important, is codeless test automation. So if you look at it, most people would look at testing from unit testing perspective, system integration testing, your performance testing to some extent, and they'll roll the APIs out. Post-rollout, there's no validation aspect of how much is being utilized. Are you having challenges or diversions from what was really designed for? Are you having security-related side of things? And does it simulate the actual business process which was supposed to do? So what we really do is basically have a no-code mechanism where you drag drop all the different services. Doesn't matter if you have SOAP, gRPC, tie them together and test it out. That actually simulates a business process. So you're testing the business process implemented using the APIs rather than just the individual APIs themselves. You then look at security aspects of it. We have a standard database which is pulled off your vulnerability database. It runs your OWASP transactions and gives you the ability to do the testing. Now, not just that, it performs synthetic monitoring, which is basically post-production, perform the real-life transactions on it to ensure that your APIs are performing properly. Last thing is the whole piece around outage management. What happens when you have a scenario? If you're deploying on-prem, How would you ensure the availability aspects of it? Would you actually build a new instance? If you're doing this on the cloud, how would SRE come into aspects of it? And that's where the other aspect we talk about is a control tower. And the control tower is not just purely from a perspective, it is end-to-end visibility of business transactions. It is technical errors, anomalies in terms of how things are happening, security or DDoS attacks which are there, and the ability to address all of those things. So that's our perspective on how or what. Each of these are frameworks which help in delivering your APIs from an organization perspective in a better, faster way to help achieve this goal. So quick snapshot of a template in terms of how, and this is product agnostic. I'm going to try and see if I can zoom in. So the intent behind is just a quick thing. This aspect of a reference architecture framework, this is a full-blown living platform with a repository of patterns, decision trees, and jumpstart kits with reference implementation. Can be deployed on top of any gateway, API gateway, can hook up with multiple products, and does the aspect of it. Then you would have aspects of an API catalog. The idea behind it is to make it as integrated as possible, talk about the aspects of a developer experience. How would you engage your developers, ensure that they are working towards it, whether the collaboration and feedback on APIs, and the most important aspect of it is the analytics side of things. What kind of analytics and metrics would you use? You're looking at standard metrics, your errors, your response times, your engagement, number of transactions, number of partners calling it, distinct IPs. And not just that, you're also looking at other aspects of how do you really take this and whether you need to redesign it and generate a new version of that API. That's the aspect of it. To me, that sums up the entire lifecycle piece and also helps in governance and visibility aspect of it. I'm going to just take a quick use case where we actually leverage these tools for one of our customers. So we're working with one of the North America's biggest rural retailer. And this is basically pandemic days, start of pandemic. You had pretty much everyone. You did not have the ability to go to stores, pick up stuff, and look at ways in which this started impacting business. At the same time, they were also looking at an acquisition which involved additional set of products. Now, the challenge with all of these things was they were trying to come up with a consistent user experience, buy online, pick up in store, loyalty programs. Each of this needed consistent APIs to be developed. How would you really build this with multiple ERPs, legacy systems, to be taken care of? So we basically led this entire digital transformation with a value stream-based approach, modern application development, and leveraging the APIs and with a full-blown CI/CD, CT in place. The continuous testing is a codeless framework, again, addresses all aspects of testing. So what did we do as a result of this? Using discovery, we identified redundancies, duplicates, and eliminated this to come up with a simplified landscape and eliminated some of the legacy applications. There was an entire stack which got eliminated, and a result of which there was simplification as well as reduction in subscription cost. We basically did multiple integrations with the SaaS platforms and helped roll out some of the capabilities faster, specifically from a loyalty program perspective, customer outreach side of things. An entire API mesh was deployed to address the aspects of scale. This whole thing was done in a way where as the traffic increased, you were able to address the aspects of increased scale, mobile applications coming in without impacting the aspects of security. There was an extensive API development with agile practices being done. We imparted training to the end users, and it also helped in addressing the aspect of velocity. And the last piece is with all of these things, you were looking at an enhanced customer experience Their previous mobile application took about 9 months for rollout. With the new APIs, with the automated testing framework, we were able to get this done in less than 12 weeks. So that's the aspect of real benefits delivered through the APIs and an extensive set of accelerators to really help drive the delivery of digital transformation capabilities. That's all I had.
Okay, we have time for a question or two, yes? Okay, excuse me. Hold on, here, let me give you the microphone first. There you go, thank you.
Hi, so you mentioned like increased velocity, it helps. I think one thing that you put up was 40% faster if you develop the API, right? I'm just curious how you kind of measure that velocity and like where you get that 40% from. I'm just curious on.
More than happy to do that. So first is, as I mentioned to you, there is a jumpstart kit which is available with reference implementations. You have already patterns which are in place. If you don't have a specific pattern and a reference implementation, you're going to start from scratch. You have identified what components are repeatable, which components will you reuse, how would you take care of error handling. Normally, if you had not used the component, we have captured how much time it takes to build it. So there is X% associated with it. In addition to it, we have ways in which we use our homegrown algorithm, which does mapping between the formats. You have the JSON, which is your contract, and the actual, let's say you were connecting to a backend SAP or a different system. It generates the translation for you using IntelliCode side of things. That's additional advantage. We see at least a 10 to 12% increase in efficiency, which comes as a result of it. The next piece we spoke about was codeless testing. And normally, you would have to use some sort of tool, hook up these APIs. If you're creating a business process, you would have API 1 calling to API 2 calling. All of that is still code. This is all codeless. You drag, drop. We basically see there's a minimum of 15% additional in terms of it. So that's the way in which we have, if without the solution, without the acceleration, how much time would it take? And that's the bare minimum we are seeing in terms of on an average experience. I hope that...
Okay, no, thank you. That was really insightful. And I have a quick question. I know
Sure.
You've been giving out these books. I'm wondering if there's any way I could get one too.
That you're asking a wrong person. That's the...
Is there? Yeah, we're good. No more copies? Oh, okay.
Sorry, a wrong person to ask.
Just curious. I think...
Oh, one more question. Like, we're explaining about the decision tree, right? Can you just quickly give an example or a sample scenario, like where the decision tree...
So we have decision trees at multiple places. First one is a product selection decision tree. So I told you organizations have, pretty much every organization would have some sort of middleware ESB platform which builds solutions. Then you have APIs which are built using code, and then there are low-code, no-code solutions. Which one would you pick what? Based upon your performance, your payload, where you are, who your end user is, it helps you recommend. That's the first decision tree. The second tree is talking about patterns. How do you interact, weave between different patterns? How do you take care of error handling, exception handling? How do you do the compensation block to ensure consistency between transactions? So those are patterns which are giving you reference implementation. So you key in the details, you will get the decision tree, will give you the pattern or integration pattern to be leveraged in the API development. Just a quick example.
Okay, that's it for this segment. Again, thank you very much. Okay, Akshay?
Thank you.